We're going to create our first project. We start nice and easy. We start with some UI elements because I think personally that UI is the most important concept of every game, because every game has some UI in it. You have to click on something, you have to go through the menu, you have to, I don't know, set some settings. So it's all being done with the UI elements. So we'll start a few nice and easy projects with UI, then we'll do a couple of games and we'll see where it goes. So let's start with creating a new project. So just open your Unity hub and then click on the new button. We're going to choose a 2D template as we don't need 3D just yet, and I think that 2D is a bit simpler because you don't have to worry about the third axis. If you don't really know what I'm talking about at the moment, don't worry, we'll cover it later. And now let's give a project name for our project, and I call it increase the value. Actually, when you're giving a name to your project in the Unity, you don't have to do this type of namings. You can add some spaces. It's absolutely valid. It's the way I like to do it, so I keep doing this way. So now we have to choose some location. So I'll open it and choose some folder on my desktop. So I will create a new one and I'll call it Unity Projects. I'll open it, select the folder and then click on create. Okay, our project is open. So let's have a look, what do we have inside our project. I don't want to spend too much time on it, and I don't want to make a separate lessons on explaining stuff. I think that we are going to learn through the project. So we'll start with simple projects, and each time we'll add some extra value to it, explaining things in Unity. So here we have few windows that are pretty much very important. The first one is hierarchy. This is the window where we can see all the elements that we are going to put on the scene. And this is a scene. As you can see, the tab called scene. Here we have a game. So this is pretty much the same as the scene. It's being invoked when we press the play button. Then we are being moved to the game tab. So let's exit. And asset store is a place where you can buy stuff and import some extra functionality, sometimes for free. Here we have inspector window, really important. If you click on the camera, you can see all the values and all the components that are being attached to the camera. So all this stuff that you can expand and collapse are called components. So this is a transform component. Pretty much every object has transform component on it. In the second you will find out that we have two type of transform components. One is called transform and it's being attached to the normal objects, and in the second we are going to add some UI elements and they will have some rect transform, which is pretty much the same but a bit different. Next we have some components that are making our objects unique. So this is called the main camera, and this is a camera because it has a camera component on it. If we remove this component, the camera won't be a camera anymore. And the same thing is when we are creating a new object. If you right click in the hierarchy, you can create some objects, and you can create practically any object out of the create empty object. So if you create some empty, so you have transform component on it. So if you add some components like camera, for example, you can make a camera out of this game object. So this is how it's being done. You just create some objects and add or remove components to, fit your needs. Okay, so let's leave it. Just remember that inspector will show you all the values and components attached to your object. And next we go to the project window in here and the console, really important ones. In the project we have all the files that we need for our project. We can create some new objects out of Unity, or we can import some stuff from outside like graphics or audios and other stuff. So okay, it's pretty much all for now. let's get into the project. So we are going to create a project where we click on the button and the value of numbers are being increased and showed up to us. If we want to click on some buttons or display some text, we have to create a UI, and all the UI elements are being placed on the canvas. So let's right click in the hierarchy and go to UI, and here you have it. You can create a canvas first and then add some things to it, or you can start with some elements that you're going to need. And we are going to need the text element and the button. So if we create, for example, text first, so you can see that the canvas is being created automatically. It is because you have to have canvas in order to place text in it. And now, if we add button, you can just click right here and press UI and then button, and you can notice that the button will be put inside the canvas automatically. So just click on button, and here you have it, because button can't exist without the canvas as any other UI element. Just remember it. So actually you can move it outside, but it won't work. And the other thing is that you need to have event system in order for the button to be clickable and to work as it should. So it's worth to remember, because once I was just doing some stuff in the hierarchy and I deleted the event system and I couldn't make it working. And then after a couple of minutes, I just figured out that, oh god, I forgot about the event system. When you create any UI element, it's being added automatically, but if you remove it, then there is a problem. Of course you can add it, just click on UI and here you have it. But it's worth to remember. So as you can see now, once we created our canvas text and the button, it's not really visible. At least it's not visible as we would like it to see. If you click on the game, it's here. You can see it in the left bottom corner, but you can't really see the text at the moment. And we need to change some aspects here. Normally when you open your new project, you will have a free aspect. And what I done, I created my own aspects. I just pressed the plus button and here I label it and I called it Full HD, and then I add fixed resolution and I've put 1920 by 1080. So this is Full HD, and I just pressed OK, and here I have it, the Full HD conspect for my games. So you can do the same if you want to. If you don't, you can just press 16:9 or whatever you like, but I would encourage you to create the same stuff as I have. So okay, I click on Full HD, go back to the scene, and we have to do something with our UI. So we can just work with the UI as it is. Here you can see it in the canvas. There is a render mode. You can choose from 3 options, and usually I use screen space overlay or screen space camera. So the screen space camera does the job for us when we click on it and just drag and drop the camera to the spot. You can see that the canvas area is being fitted to the camera area, and this is pretty much fine. And most of the time I work in these settings, but sometimes if you do not want to do it, then you can go back to overlay and then click on the canvas and then move your cursor on the scene and press F. So you are being focused on your UI. And if you want to be focused on your camera again, just click on the camera, go with your cursor on the scene and press F again. So shortcut F is for focusing, okay? So click on the canvas, F, and here you have it. Use your scroll to increase or decrease or zoom in and zoom out. And click the third button to, pan your view in the scene window. So here we have it. I will just click on my button and I will increase the size of it and put it in the middle, for example. Now I will grab our text and do the same thing, and I will increase the size of it. You can click on the one of the edges and then press Alt button to increase its value symmetrically. And this works either horizontally or vertically. So now we can increase some size of our text. I will go to this text component and use the font size and slide it to the right. You can notice that you can just type some numbers like 100, or you can just hover over the property name and just slide it left or right to increase or decrease it. So let's leave it on this value, for example, put it to the middle and vertically as well. We can add some default text like 0, for example, because we are going to start from the 0. Now let's click on the game tab to see how it's going to look like, and it's looking fine. The only thing I want to change is the background color. So I click on the main camera, and now I will click on the background and choose a white color. Okay, let's change some buttons value, because this button name is too little. So let's increase the size of it. We have to click on the button and then expand all the children of this game object and click on the text. And here let's do the same thing. I think let's call this button like add 1 or something, because this is what this button is going to do. It's going to add 1 to our value and display it. We can change the font style to bold, for example. We can do the same thing with our text. And let's leave it as it is. Of course, all those values, you can play with it and see what result you can have. You can change color and everything. We are not going to cover it because I think this is something you can do yourself just to experiment with it. So let's go and create some functionality. We have everything pretty much done. We can make some changes to our canvas yet. We can, because we choose the canvas render mode, and now there is something called canvas scaler. So this is pretty much important when you are going to export your game to Android, for example. So you want to scale with screen size, because all the mobiles and other devices have different resolution ratio. So we have to be prepared for it. And here I want to add reference resolution to fit the resolution we put in here. So I put 1920 by 180. And here there is a match. Do you want to match to width or to the height? It's up to you. I usually use the height. So let's leave it as it is for now to keep it simple. So this is pretty much the standard steps which you need to take when you start a new project. You have to decide whether the canvas needs to be in screen space overlay or the camera. We are not going to cover the world space just yet. This is for different uses. And then you need to add some values to canvas scaler. So let's add some functionality. We can add functionality by adding the script and put some code in it. So let's right click in the project and click create, and then choose C# script. So let's call it increase the value. When you create a new script, you should start with the capital letter and you shouldn't put any spaces in it. Actually, you shouldn't put any other signs, just put normal letters, and every other word just start with the capital letter and you should be fine. So let's open the script. I'm going to work with Visual Studio because I really like it. Sometimes I use Visual Studio Code, but I do prefer Visual Studio, to be honest. We are going to use UI elements, and in order to use it, we have to tell our script or our compiler that we are going to use it. We are doing it by saying using Unity Engine, and then we have to add the dot and put UI. So this is pretty much standard procedure. Each time you want to use UI element, you have to add this line of code on the top of your class, because here you have the class. So here we have the class. As you can see, this is the same name as we added to our script when we created it, and it has to stay the same. you can't change the name of your script without changing the name of the class, because it has to stay the same. And if you do it, you will get some errors. So now we have two methods called start and update. As you can see, start is called before the first frame, so this is being executed at the very beginning, and the update is being called once per frame, so it's being called constantly all over again, like 30, 40, 50, 100 times per second. It depends on your computer power. The more powerful computer, the more frequently the update method will be called. We want to get into our components, and the first component that we want to get into is our text component, and it's here. So this is our object, and it has the text component in it. So if we want to display some different value to it, we have to get into the text component, and then we need to get into the text field of it. So how do we do it? We have to make a reference to this component and to this object, of course. So how can we do it? We can use something called serialize field. So let's do it. I will show you how it's being done. So we type serialize field, and now we are calling the type of the component we want to get into. And we want to get into the text component, so we write text, and now we give it a name because we are creating some variable now. I will call it takes the display number. By putting this line, we are creating some field in our script, but in order to display this field, we need to add our script to some object on the scene. We can add it to the main camera, to the canvas, or we can create a new object. And this is what we are going to make. We are going to make an empty object, and let's call it game manager. And probably you want to put a capital letter in every other word that you are going to create. And now we want to add our script to it. So let's just drag it and drop it on your object. And here you have it. This is our script. So as you can see, our scripts are being treated as components as well. So here we have this field that we created. You can see it here. Takes that display number. So if you go back to the code, this is exactly what we just created. And it's here. So now we can drag and drop this text to that field. So by dragging and dropping it, we created a connection. So this is like reference to this object and to this component, because actually if you click on it, I want you to understand it correctly. We are making a reference to this object, but in particular to this component of this object, because as you can see, the type of this field is text. So if this object didn't have the text component on it, you couldn't make this reference. Okay, this is very important to understand and to remember that you need to add some object to this field that has this component on it. Okay, so we have this reference done, so we can go back to our script and we want to display some value in it. Let's start with some random value. So let's say that we want to display a hello message when we click the play button. So in the start, let's make the statement that we get into the component text. So we use this variable, so you just type it, and now we need to get into the text field. So I'll just type text, and now we have to assign some new value to it. So I will just type hello. And that's it. We are going to print hello once we press the play button. So let's go back and press the play button, and that should work. And as you can see, we changed the value. So now in the same way, we want to display the next number. We need to increase it and then display it. So we have to create some methods. We're not going to use the update method, so I'm going to delete it. And let's create a method that is going to increase the value. But before we do it, we have to specify some variable with the starting point, or we can call it a counter or something like that. So this will be of type integer, and I will call it a counter, and we'll initialize it with the value 0 because we want to start counting from 0. So now we are going to create increase the value method, and I will just add by 1 because the name of the method can be the same as the name of the class. So now add the first parenthesis and then the curly brackets, and here we want to take the counter and just increase the value of it. So this is how we increase the value, and now we want to display it. So we are going to create another method, and let's call it display the number. And here we want to do the same thing as we did in here. So we want to get into the component, text component that we make the reference in here. And now we want to get into the text field, and here we want to get our counter. But the counter is a type of integer, and we need to display something of type string. You have to remember that anything that we get into the program, or anything that we are displaying or getting out of the program, is being of type string. It is a text. And in this case, we have to change our number to string. And there we have a method that will help us to do it. So we put counter and then the dot and toString method. And it should work fine. So now in the hello, we don't really need it. So I will just delete it. But we can display our number straight away when we press play. So we will call this method display the number. We want to increase the value by 1, and then we want to display the number. So we could increase the value by 1, and after it we could call this display the number. So we can do both things at the same time, but I would like to create another method that is going to do all the stuff for us. So I put void and I call it increase and display. And here first we are calling increase the value by 1, and then we are calling display the number. And we need to call this method by pressing on the button. And in order to do it, we have to make this method public because we have to use it outside of the script. So now we can save it by pressing Ctrl and S, or just pressing this blue floppy disk icon, and we can minimize it. And if we go back to Unity, here if you click on your button, you can scroll down, and here you have the field called onclick. If we click on plus button, and now we have to drag some object. What kind of object is it? This is the object where script sits on. So our script is on the game manager, so we just drag and drop it, and here we are looking for our script, and our script is called increase the value. And here we can see methods that we can call, and of course we should find our methods that we want to call. And if we didn't set it as public, we won't be able to see it here. That's why it's important to make this access modifier as public. So we are choosing increase and display. And now if we save it and press play, you will see that when we click on it, we will get another number, and you can add 1 and 1 and 1, and this is working pretty fine. This is very important to try not only follow me with this project, but after it just delete it and start from fresh and try to do it on your own, because this is really important to progress and to check yourself if you can do it without the help.